Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another AccuColor webinar series. Today, we're really excited to bring you Post Like a Pro, Episode 1, The Setup, featuring Maxon's Anthony Berry Jr., Simon Walker, and Max Raharjo. Guys, take it away, introduce yourselves, and thanks for being on today.
I think we should start with Simon.
All right. Okay. I was going to volunteer you. Okay. I'm Simon Walker. I'm head of training and learning at Maxon, and I've been doing post-production things, oh God, for a while now. Since, in fact, before Photoshop had layers back in the mid-90s, and that's in the post-production and VFX industry. So just to give you some background, I've been a colorist and a freelancer for many years too, and for a decade I was a instructor for the International Colorist Academy. So that's my angle. That's the experience that I'm going to be talking about today. So you go for it, Tony.
All right. Unlike Simon, like I haven't written as many books as Simon has, or made as many appearances, but I come from heavy post-production, camera production, live production, and I've been a freelancer for quite some time. I am a demo trainer, artist type with Maxon as a freelancer, and I do a lot of different things from camera to post to delivery and finishing editing, as they call it here in Hollywood, and I'm based in Los Angeles. And I'm going to volley this over to Max.
Hi, everybody. So like everything in post-productions, colorists come at last, right? So my name is Max. I'm a resident colorist at Maxon. And at Maxon, I also run a bi-weekly color grading show called Max on Color, or Max on Color, depends on how you see it. And I'm a certified instructor for Blackmagic as well, and also an instructor for ICA, like Simon. So I'm looking forward for today's sessions so much. I think that's it.
Ding, ding, next. Should we just jump right into it? Would you like me to share my screen and we can talk through some of the ideas we're going to talk about today in this short little window of time?
Oh, and Tony, let them know we're going to take questions.
What's that?
Or sorry, Max,
go ahead.
I was going to say to everyone on the attending, we're going to take questions throughout the webinar, so send them over, and if you have anything that you want answered in conversation form, save them to the end. We can dive in deeper.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
So
What I want to say before, Tony, why don't you walk us through what are we going to talk today? What are we going to learn?
Our outline. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Max. All right. So let me share my screen, and I put together a little infographic here just to get the ideas flowing and get everybody's mind tuned to where we're going in this little period of time here. So just to think about some things that kind of get your ideas flowing in your mind, especially if you're doing any creative work, or even if you're doing task-based work, like finishing editing or photo retouching and stuff like this. Find the tools and the toolkit that you use. And then, what is it that you actually have on your desk? We'll talk a little bit about that. And if you want to ask any questions about that, we're open to all these kinds of questions. Also, down the line, these are things that we'll cover in this whole series here, but down the line, can you consolidate some of your tech? Maybe you have way too many plugs on your desk, and now with technology like Thunderbolt technology, it'll do display plus power your laptop, and now that's like a couple of cables that you don't need. And then also just changing your perspective on the way that you have your monitors. So maybe you can change the way that you work by changing your form factor, and we'll go through that. And also, do you work as a solo artist, creative, tech, whatever it is, or do you work on a team? And how can you maybe have a lot easier path to changing your workflow than you do if you're on a team and you have to either be briefed on a new workflow or brief your whole team on a workflow. So, but we'll talk a little bit about this, some today and some throughout the series. And let me, I guess, hop in straight to my desktop. Do you guys want to add anything to that before I
was going to say, as well as sharing questions, we have a question for everyone, actually. we prepared a couple of polls because it's just interesting to find out where you're coming from in terms of post-production. So Ali, if you wouldn't mind just sharing that first poll. For those of you who are editors, and we're going to cover a lot of editing workflows today, which particular NLE, non-linear editor, are you using? And there we go. So which one do you use the most? So it's tricky because sometimes you use a couple of them. So if you just click on which particular one that is your favorite, if you like, or the one that you use the most, and you can always click on it. It depends on the project. If you're a freelancer and then you go into facilities and you've got to use whatever's there. But we just included some of the major ones on the top there, and just give it a few more seconds. As and when you're ready, Ali, you can then let us know what the scores were, if you like.
Sure. Votes still coming in.
And then also,
Okay.
I would say, like, if you're using Photoshop and you're like doing photo retouching, and you just want to hop in a video for the first time, or you've shot some videos on set, and you were taking photos before, now you're dabbling in video. Which one do you want to use? What's your next step? So if you're not already using an NLE, what would be your next step? Premiere, Resolve, Avid, or it depends?
Always, it depends. That's the answer.
Yes, it depends.
Okay, guys, so the votes are settling now. We have 56% selected Premiere Pro, 8% each for DaVinci Resolve and Avid Media Composer, and it looks like 32%. It depends on the project.
All right.
Cool. All right. Great.
Good. A lot of flexibility out there. So, all
Awesome.
right, so should I go back to sharing my screen?
Yeah,
You
here
have to end the poll as well. So it sends it back to us. There we go.
All right. So just to kind of touch on these ideas, did you guys want to add anything to this before I move on? Look at that poll.
So here's proof of the results.
All right.
Depends.
Yep. It depends, and Adobe seem to be the winners. All right. So anything about this, guys?
All good, Tony.
All right. So we will talk more about that. In the meantime, let's just go right here. I'll hide this, and I'll go right to my desk. And let's just talk about, first and foremost, this is a messy desktop. This could be way messier, but I'm just going to show you a lightly messy desktop. And there's a cool little app. This is something that's just a productivity tool. I'm going to share a couple of productivity tools, share some creative tools. And as we step through that, let's just show you. There's always the manual way to clean things up, whether you're on a Mac or on a PC. I happen to be on a Mac. So let's say I just want to clean up this mess right here in like 2 seconds. Like grab all of these, right click, boom, new folder, and then DT and today's date, right? So today being 03/28/23, right? Fastest way to clean it up. If not, if you don't want to clean it up, and there's some, there's a reason behind your madness of having this like messy desktop, there's a little cool app right here, and this is called Desktop Curtain, and there's a little shortcut that you can do. So if you're on the Mac, just hit Option C, and now I've masked my desktop, all right? So just Option C, especially when you're doing something like this, it's front facing, and now I'm talking to everybody, but I don't need to showcase how messy my desktop is. I can just hit Option C. And the reason why sometimes people just import items straight from their desktop or whatever it is, and then you go open up whatever nonlinear editor you're working on. I hope you're not working on your desktop, but it does happen. In a pinch, you just try to export something out quick. But anyhow, so that 2 ways to just quickly clean up your desk. Reason being, if you're like me, or maybe you don't know if you're like me, I personally cannot work with a messy desk. Even my like physical desk right in front of me, if it's a mess, I have to literally just take a moment, stop what I'm doing, and just push everything off to the side. I even like will put stuff in a bag and then put it aside until later. So like I need to clean off my desk, and for me, even not just the physical desk, but also having a clean desktop like this just helps me work a little bit easier, and it clears your mind. So that's all I got to say about the desktop portion. Max, did you want to add anything for those that are on the Windows side of things? I think you're muted.
Oh, not yet, Tony. At the moment, it's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. So let me talk about, let's say for instance, right, you're in a jam, you're like, you have to create some kind of motion graphic, or you got to create some kind of video and give it some flavor, and you just don't know what kind of flavor you want to go with. There's a little inspirational tool, I like to call it, if you have Creative Cloud, right? So if you're subscribed to Adobe already, you have your desktop apps, mobile apps, and then you also have the web app. So if you go here under web, right, and this is just my Creative Cloud app. Now scroll down here and you'll see under here there is Adobe Color. And it just says to launch Adobe Color. What'll happen is it'll take you right to the website. The website is, and I can type it in our chat. It's just color.adobe.com. So color.adobe.com. Let's see, I'm gonna share my screen here. And I'll just, so when you get to color.adobe.com, this is what you get greeted with. And I'll just give you a quick tour. All right, so under the create, right, you have options here for color to like just kind of jump around, and you can do this. A couple of interesting things I like to do is go to the different shades. So you pick one shade of this color, and now you'll get like, this is, everything's pivoting around C, or you can choose, you can set a different base color. Right, and then everything will pivot around that base color. And you can also, those of you that might have studied this when you were in art school or anything, if you ever taken an art class and you talk about the color harmony rules, you can go here, and this is your analogous monochromatic triad, complementary colors, split complementary, double split, and it just gets nerdier from there. If you want to go shades, this for me, I always find this pretty useful. And then even complementary, it's a nice way to set things up. So when I'm ready to start designing, working with color on my video, or even creating any graphics or logos, now I also have all of these numbers right here that I can plug in, right? And you can also choose your color mode, HSB, lab color, and RGB for video, right? And then I can just kind of copy and paste these, and I can create, or I can just go ahead and I can create this theme, right? So I'll just call this like BenQ1, right? And it kind of tags what each of these are, and then I can actually publish these if I want and share them with the world, or I can just kind of keep them to myself and be selfish. But there's also, you can go here. Here's another little inspiration trick, right? So I have a couple of these images. Those of you that watch HBO or Netflix or whatever you watch, maybe you watch The Last of Us, right? If you grab this clip right here, just this clip, this photo image that I've just pulled down from the web on HBO's website, just grab it, drag it, and now I can find some inspiration from this image here, right? And I can copy and paste any of these, copy them the color to my clipboard, right? I can use them in Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere, all the way down the suite. I can pull kind of which mood am I trying to pull? The bright, the muted colors, the deep colors, right? The colorful parts of the image. And then you can also, adjust these as you want. And then, so this is to extract, like, these are like color swatches, right? And they will populate just like this. I'll save this, and it lands in my list, in my libraries. But if I want to, I can also extract the gradient from this. And you can say how many stops you want this gradient to be. And then you can also just kind of adjust it as needed. Let's say I don't want it to be 12 stops. I want it to be a little more simple. And I can drag this out and kind of, you can ramp up your colors so you can distance the separation between colors and make things look a little bit more smooth if you want. And that's just all done right on screen. So again, this tool is free if you already have Creative Cloud. It's a really easy way to kind of get some inspiration, just in case you're in a funk and you kind of find yourself in stuck mode. Happens to all of us. I'm sure it happens to Simon, Max, as well. So if we go in here,
I've got a question for you, Tony.
yeah.
So a pragmatic use of this, would you be needing to dive into an example like this if you had an art director or a creative on your project who was asking you to match a particular color that you wanted to apply in post-production to video that you shot, for example? Is that when you'd use this?
Absolutely. It's the quickest way to cheat on your test, right? So if they're asking you to like use your brain to kind of mimic something, and you know, it's funny you say that because I've been on some interesting projects that they pull something down from Instagram and say they like the look of the thing on Instagram. So you know, can't rule out any of these sources. So you know, great question, and the answer is yes. The fastest way to get to that answer is get you know, use a tool like this that'll get you to a technically correct answer, and it has a pretty fun user interface. So I hope that answers that question.
I think later on we're going to be showing how you might do that, how you might grab a color and then influence some of your footage.
Absolutely.
Giving the game away somewhat.
What's that?
Giving the game away somewhat.
Yes, just a little bit. So inside on this website, you'll see Explore, and this is stuff that other artists and other creative people have put together. And you can just kind of download any of their stuff. You can download the sample image as a JPEG, and you can also add that swatch to your library if you want. You can also go in here and just see what's cool, what's hot, based on stuff that people have already published, based on game design or photos. Or there's a lot of stuff that you can look on inside of this website here. And then you can also look at the libraries that you already have created, and you can see the ones that I just created here. So there is another tool in case you don't have Adobe, right, and you have not subscribed to the suite. Let me show you this other tool. It's very similar. And even if you do have Adobe, this is just another fun tool to use. It's called Coolers, right? I might be getting that wrong, but coolers.co. And you can hit just very easily, just hit the space bar, and now you can just generate random colors. And then if you see something that you like while you're playing this roulette game of finding the color, you can go here and I can look at this lilac here, and there's options in here. View different shades of this lilac, right? And it shows you which one you're pivoting from. That's your original, right? And then you can also go in here and copy the hex code, so you can paste it right into Photoshop or any color management tool that's built in on your OS. And you can kind of use this against all kinds of things. Like if I'm using this, it tells me, does this work with white text? Does this work with black text? All right. There's a lot of different uses for this. And you can do the same thing like I just did before. I can just grab a piece of stock, something that I like this White Lotus or this Winning Time. Let's just drag this one here. And now that's going to pull from the different colors. And you can also just increase this to, if you hit the plus and the minus, you're going to see how many colors pop up here. And I'm going to just use this as my palette, open in generator, right? And now I have all these options. So again, if you don't have Adobe, right? If you don't have Adobe, you can utilize coolers.co. There is a professional version. You can also sign up for free. They've added a few new features for the pros, people that want to pay monthly for a few new features. Or if you go in here, let's just see, you can do, and there's plenty of little things that you can do. You can also export the palette that you have back as an image. And I'll just say like winning, right? Winning time, right? And I'll just export it, and I'll export this as RGB. You can even play with the labels and really just kind of make it, make it yours. So this is one example, and I'll show you the other example here in a few, but many different things you can do with either one of these tools, and they're very powerful. And if there are any questions, feel free to type them up in the chat or save them for later. Of course, here is the upgrade for $3 to go pro, and I'll let you do the search on your own as to what that does. But between these two, these are quick ways to kind of get you inspired and get you to a good point to where Now you know for a fact you're going to go in this direction, and you got some inspiration from either some of your favorite TV shows, movies, or just random art that you already have, or a photo even. So,
Hey, Tony, we got some questions that came in, if you can take them.
sure.
So first one is from Michael. What is the name of the desktop cleaning app?
On the Mac or the PC. On the Mac, it would be called Desktop Curtain. Is it right here about Desktop Curtain? And it's just a little app that you can buy in the App Store if you're on the Mac.
Then another one from Daniela. Is this tool, Adobe Color, for free, or must we have a paid Adobe Creative Cloud account?
To my knowledge, you should have an account. 100%, I would say that you need to have a Creative Cloud account, or you at least need to register. I think you can register without having the full account. So you can create like a user, and I think you might even have limited space for, like, I guess even if you do like a trial of Adobe, and I don't know how long the trial is nowadays. I think it used to be 30 days. Now I think it's down to like a week. Do you know anything about that, Simon? Like a trial for Adobe?
I've just been checking it out now. No, you can use it without being logged in as well. And then you
Oh,
can,
there you go.
Yep. Can you save swatches? That's the thing. So you can use the tool, and then you can see what comes. To save a swatch, it wants you to be signed in with your Adobe ID.
But you don't necessarily need to save a swatch, because you can go in here, you can copy these codes. Or
So
if you wanted to, you can also kind of screenshot that. So this right here just makes life easier, of course. It integrates into the programs easier, but you can also just go in here and grab the hex codes. You can copy and paste those into the app that you're using.
And Daniela replied, 7 days.
There you go. Thank you.
And Tony, two more questions.
Sure.
We have a two-parter here from Dieter. Can you filter out the various color spaces? For example, if I don't need to see hexadecimal values or CMYK, and adjust focus on RGB.
So if you're here and you choose color mode, right? These sliders right here, you can see as I change color mode, you're only going to see this is for RGB right here. So these are your options. And to answer your question, all that does, it's going to give you RGB values right here. And then this, of course, is the brightness slider. So that's your red, green, and your blue channels. And then here's your brightness slider.
And maybe Max will touch up on this later, but he had part two of the same question. Can you generate LUTs in color?
Yeah, I mean, in the color app here, as of right now, I don't see an option for it, but it doesn't mean that you can't extract these color profiles and then use these on top of your video. They don't become necessarily a LUT or a lookup table, but they'll become usable, accurate, technically accurate color that you can plug in to other third-party plugins that allow for you to create a LUT, if that answers the question. So yes, but not natively. And I think Simon may know a few of those apps.
I was searching for the LUT ability in there. I mean, if you're taking this into Resolve, then you can create a LUT from that. You can also do it if you're in Premiere. You can assign and export a LUT based on that color swatch.
Yep.
That's a couple of things that we're going to be jumping into when we get to pragmatic video application.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I think
today
you
is
need to
just
bring
the
it
setup.
into I think you need to bring it into like a the NLE itself, like Premiere and Resolve in this case. So and then you can design your LUT there and then create the LUT.
And also there's a
Resolve.
ton of Maxon tools that just happen to do that as well. So just to kind of move us forward here from Adobe Color, that's color.adobe.com, and then the Coolers website as well. we can type those up in the chat if that helps. But great little apps to kind of get you some inspiration. And then let me just kind of follow what I was telling you before. Right click and just quickly the manual way to clean things up. This is my inspo, right? Pics or art, right? Now let's talk about setup, and I'm going to showcase right here my displays, and I'll tell you about my displays here in just a second. But let me show you in my display settings what I have going on and why this works for me. And this may not work for everybody, but I find that this helps me, and I've opened a few people's eyes to using your monitors in a specific way. I have two of these 27-inch BenQ monitors. One is my primary, which will be the more advanced version, and then the one on the right-hand side here, I have in a 90-degree. I'm using it in a portrait mode versus this in a landscape mode, right? And if you're on the Mac, you can flip this rather easy. Same with the PC, you have similar options. And both of these I have set to HDR mode. And for right now, I have them in 1080, so you can actually see what I'm doing. If I'm in 4K or more, you're not gonna be able to see anything I'm doing on my screen. So what I typically like to do is if I have anything that involves files, surfing the internet, doing any task-based stuff, or lists of files in any of my apps, then I have them right here on the right-hand side in this really tall view in portrait mode. And then I have usually my two monitors and whatever I'm working with, my timeline, or whatever it is that views my actual image that's ready for output, I'll have on this screen right here in landscape mode in 4K resolution. And then also you have the option, right? You have your color profiles that you can also calibrate, generate new ones. I can even go to P3 if needed, depending on how serious the project is. But you can quickly switch your color profile in here. And there's also a tool that's supplied to you by BenQ, and we'll talk about that at a later date. And then also anybody that has.
I've got a question for you, Tony. This might be a silly question. There's obviously an advantage for plugging in a second monitor in terms of the real estate or extra space that you've got. But the more general question would be, why would you need this? Why would you plug in a series of monitors? And in fact, that might be a good topic or a good time to bring in our second poll, Ali, because we were talking about this earlier on. Is there a specific advantage for this over and above just having more space to deal with things? So what we wanted to ask you as a team, is do you use a second monitor? And so same sort of deal. If you do, yes. If you don't, click no. And then again, it depends.
And I'll just add, if you're on a laptop, if you're on an iMac, all right, I find that some people might be discouraged using an iMac with a second monitor because your computer is basically a monitor. Like it works perfectly with iMacs, works perfectly with laptops. Tell the truth, I think when we were stuck indoors doing Zooms all the time, I never opened up my laptop. I left it in like a clamshell mode, and I just had two displays going to it through a Thunderbolt dock. So I never my screen on my 2019 computer is like brand new. So if you haven't used the second monitor, or you haven't used an external monitor that may be better than your laptop's monitor existing, you also save a little bit of the graphics capabilities by going external instead of beaming up to your existing monitor that belongs to your laptop. But yeah, let's see what this poll comes up with. How many people have a second monitor, and how many people actually use a second monitor?
So the poll is swaying. Results are interesting. I'll give it a few more seconds.
All right. Should we cue the Jeopardy music?
I've got a question for you as well, both Tony and Max. I kind of know the answer to this, but it'd just be interesting to hear your take. What is the difference between just a monitor that you plug into your computer and a reference monitor that you would use, say, in your editor? video? And
Yeah,
why would
that's
you
a
use
really
one
good
versus?
question, Simon.
Why don't you take the lead on that, Max? I know
Yeah,
you're itching to
absolutely.
answer this one.
The idea of having an external reference monitor is that you can bypass the RGB signal from your computer into the reference monitor. And in this case, you are bypassing the operating system color management. So the signal will not be processed by your color management happening in the in the computer. So we know that sometimes the pictures goes into processed by the graphic card, video card, and then the video card looking into the gamma table and then correcting the image and then adjusting the image to the monitor specs. And this is something that you want to avoid anytime you want to work professionally whenever you are dealing with color, right? So one thing that you can make things easier is that, okay, just forget about the computer color management and just send the pure RGB signal to the reference monitor and have it previewed on the reference monitor, which is calibrated to a specific specifications like sRGB or Rec 709, something like that. So by doing that, it means like you have the full complete control and you know that the image that you are seeing in your reference monitor is correct. And having that working will be like having that knowledge in your mind. You'll have peace of mind while doing your project, especially when dealing with colors.
All right.
And
I don't think I could have said it any better than that. So that's great. Thank you.
and I think there is like a external hardwares that you can get to bypass those signal from computers
Yes.
and sending it into the reference monitor.
And you're going to show that, right? In just a moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna quickly jump through this, and I want to hand it off to you. So just to kind of show you, this is how I have my display set up. Ali, I think I don't know if you have that file on you to share.
Tony, no, I don't have it on the computer to share, but it was
Okay.
your beautiful workspace with your monitor.
Yes. If not, I'll share it on the next one. I will. Let me just quickly open up. I'm going to open up Adobe Premiere and just show you how I would set things up if I have instead of having two monitors in landscape mode or just a single monitor. Right? How would I set up for a single, and then how would I set up for having one in this kind of portrait mode, and then having one in landscape mode? So I'll quickly shuffle through that. Let me just open up Adobe Premiere. Boom, there it is. Fastest way you ever opened it, right? It was already open. So right here, I've made this workspace, and let me share both of my screens, and you're going to see them both kind of butted up to one another. Oh, that's screen 2. Here's both screens. So you'll see on the left, this right here is my main screen where I have my timeline, right? And typically, if I wasn't doing a webinar, I would have this in a higher resolution, which means that the text and everything will be a little bit smaller. But this is where I'm really working on the image. This is where I'm working on the edit. This is where I care about what I see inside of these screens here. So, you know, this right here for me would be my 4K, and then I would go over here to the right, and this right here I would have in a 1080 mode, so I can see the text, so I can see the files, so I can see the internet and the web pages, so I can go to Adobe Color, and it just makes life easier. So if I go here and I go to Adobe Color, right? Or if I go, even checking your email now, just look at your screen real estate on here. It's just a little bit easier to kind of navigate and just kind of work with this and then jump back over here to this. And then again, same with this. Now that I'm back in this kind of dual monitor situation, the biggest thing I would say is make sure that you maximize these frames, right? And you want to give some love to specific panels that you find yourself using. Like if you're constantly importing things, keep your media browser open. If you care about the metadata all the time, right now you can see all these different fields because it's in a top-down situation. And then also you can make you know, very big long lists of your files, or even view your files, you know, like this, and then go here into the like storyboard mode and kind of adjust these as needed. If you haven't used this already, this is such a really cool situation. You can kind of shrink things based on priority and kind of build your story into like a storyboard. But that's for another day. I just wanted to touch on the ideas right here of like using this and kind of having everything in a technical, all the technical aspects of your project or your task-based stuff on the right-hand side or the left. If you prefer having your monitor on the left inside of this portrait mode, nothing wrong with that. I just happen to default to the right. So again, remember when I was creating all this stuff with the Adobe Color, this pops up in here and you can kind of like look through and sync all of your stuff from the cloud. Inside of here, you'll see your libraries pop up. So with that said, here's the BenQ stuff. Here's the stuff I just did. Gradients and color swatches, and this is inside of Adobe Premiere. And then the other thing I was going to say is if you make sure, right, that you have these inside of a panel, right, the main difference is you can do this quick hit the tilde key and you'll have it in this max frame mode where you can kind of toggle in and out using the tilde key. That's right near the escape key on your keyboard, and you can max frame. If you have this in like a floating window, like if everything is kind of sitting there and it's just hovering and you can see the back of your desktop, then you're not going to have access to that. It's just going to maximize to only the size of that frame. So if your frame is only this big, it's only going to maximize and take over just that one frame. So I recommend that you know, if you go full screen with both of them, you know, be fully immersed in Adobe Premiere. You can also go in here and hit this button here, and now I'm like fully immersed. Hit the escape key, right? It'll take you out of there. It's actually right here. This exit full screen video. Oop. Or just go up and click on the bar, and then there's the option under View. Where is it? There it is, and that takes you out. So again, setting this up for a single screen, like I would basically go in here in my workspace for a single screen. I think if you base it off assembly, it's not a bad idea, because then you have both your monitors on the same page and they get just as much love as needed. And then you're just basically shuffling between what's needs to go inside of this timeline and what's in that timeline. And usually once I'm already in this mode, I'm just caring about what's in here. So you can give more love to your files. This is like if you're on a laptop in a coffee shop or something like that. But I want to hand this over to Max because I know we don't have too much time. And just to show you, you know, kind of the differences between both and how I like to use portrait mode on one monitor and then landscape mode on the other. And 1080 for my technical stuff so I can read all the text, and then 4K so I can see all the beautiful pixels in my images. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to do a volley over here to you, Max.
Thank you, Tony.
Mm-hmm. And Max will show us this in DaVinci Resolve.
All righty. So can you see my screen? I think
Yep.
I'm showing.
Yeah, we see it.
Yes, it's just a quick recap from what Tony has actually already shown you, because he shows like so many creativity tools, but most of them are based on Mac, right? So I would like to show you some counterpart that you can also access if you're not on Mac, or if you don't have Adobe subscriptions, you can still do that. So for example, the color picker, I have like a very simple color picker. It's like the bare bone, no frills type of color picker, color scheme generators. And that is by going, the website is called sessions.edu. And what you can do there is like you can just pick a certain color. And then, for example, I'll pick some tealy color over here. And then you can choose the color harmony. In this case, you can choose like complementary color or monochromatic or analogous or split complementary. So for example, if I am, after selecting teal color and selecting the complementary color scheme, we got our beloved color scheme, right? The most popular color scheme. Whenever you like browse the internet, you got the teal and orange. And then you can also change that to monochromatic, for example, or the split complementary, or the triadic if you want to, and it's all going to be displayed here. And if you need the hex code or the RGB code, for in this case, you can click the Get Color Scheme, and it will lead you to a different page, and you can copy the hex code, the RGB, and the CMYK, and you can hit print or save. Right? That's like the bare bone, no frills color scheme generators. And the next one is like the app, a simple app, which is like I found like really powerful. It's really simple and really powerful. I'm on Windows, by the way, and I can search things like that. I can open like a Mac style search bar, for example, and that is actually generated or done by a simple tool called PowerToys. It is available in Microsoft. So if you go to Microsoft, you can search for PowerToys, or you know what? I can copy and paste this. And let me just copy this and paste it to the chat. So if you are on Windows and you want to download PowerToys to check it out, you can check the chat at the moment. So in PowerToys, you have a lot of things. Like, for example, you can select, you can do color picking. You can pick color and show the RGB value in this case. So for example, if I hit Windows Shift and C, I change my cursor into a color picker. So for example, if I'm picking like this hue over there, I can see the hex code, I can see the RGB code, and then the HSL code as well. Not just that, if you are into like organizing your desktop, there's also fancy zones within PowerToys. And if you have it enabled, and the shortcut will be Windows Shift and that particular button over there that you can see, you see that you can like kind of like arrange your desktop, and especially if you love to have like a clean desktop, and this is it. And the next one, like my favorite one is like, for example, anytime I want to point out something, I have like this mouse cursor app, also available in PowerToys. So if you want to check out PowerToys, and it's really nice productivity tools that you can use, and it's free. The next one is that when we have checked our color scheme, for example, I'm a big fan of cinema, and I'm a big fan of film. Like I find myself like to be inspired from a lot of movies. And if you're like me and you want to get inspired from a lot of movies, there's like this nice website called Shot Deck, and it's like a library of film, a lot of films. So if I go, you can search for a lot of films. For example, my favorite one would be hang on. If I go back to Shot Deck, if I search for my favorite film, for example, La La Land, you can see that it's right there. And you have all the shots from La La Land. And guess what? If you click it, you have the color scheme already. So what's nice about this, not just the color scheme, it is all broken down to a very interesting detail that you can use. So for example, here you can see the film stock that used for the shot. It was Kodak 5219 or 7219 Vision 3 500T. So that's a really nice information that you can use whenever you want to create an homage to that type of look. Or you can see that the cinematographer is Linus Sandgreen in this case, right? And what's nice with this is that you can create your own deck. So for example, here, if you open that, you can add this to a deck. By clicking that, you can create your own deck, and then you can add that to your deck. So for example, I have like plenty of just 3 decks that I prepared. So for example, if I if I want to get inspired from the complementary color scheme, I can collect a lot of those how do you call it, shots, and then collect it to my decks and start analyzing them. Or for example, if I want to see different techniques of day for night, I can kind of like gather them together in one folder and start analyzing them. And by doing so, if you bring it to your color grading package, you can kind of like measure the brightness, the contrast, and everything, and then you kind of get to the basic of the look. And that's Shot Deck. It's a subscription-based website. But if you want the free versions, but it's not so complete like Shot Deck, you can go to Film Grab, by the way. And if you have all these resources, and there's like this really nice app called PureRef. It is you can donate to them if you want to download it, and you can launch PureRef, and then you can like throw all the image that you find in the internet, and you can kind of create lookbook. And what's nice is that let me move it to the center. Once you like double click an image, it scale up to the size of the windows that you have. So for example, here you can see I want to get inspired from the Top Gun Maverick, so I can collect a lot of image from Top Gun, and this is nice, and you can like have it like that. So if you want to work while having your reference images right next to you or in your second screen, you can use PureRef and just simply drag and drop a lot of image in the PureRef, right? So, so the next one is that whenever we are starting entering Resolve, and we have like two screens, and in this case I have two screens, and one of them is my favorite BenQ PD3220U. And what's nice about this 32-inch screen is that it's HDR capable, so I can view my edit in HDR. So for example here, if I'm having my how do you call it, single screen layout at the moment, I can select workspace, and if I select video clean feed into generic PNP monitor 1, it will show my timeline in the big HDR screen that I'm having. So for example, let me share both screen. Hang on. Let me turn this off a little bit, and let me share both of my screen. So for example, if I go to workspace and then go to video clean feed and I select that monitor, I can see that now I am having, I can preview my, how do you call it, my viewer in full screen. And if I change to different clip, I can also see that in my full screen. So this is another nice way of working. And if you want to exploit further,
for you.
yes.
Sorry, Max. I've got a question for you on this particular thing. When you're showing that full screen, is that bypassing the operating system color management,
No.
or is that going through the management inside DaVinci?
Yes, this is going. This is still managed by your operating system. How do you call it? Color management in this case. So the ICC profile is still having a take on this one.
So have you got any recommendations if you're doing this, and let's say you spent a lot of time in Shot Deck and you've identified a number of color swatches that you want to emulate on your project, what is a good process in terms of how just generally I know this is an open question to ask a colorist, but what would be your first steps to make sure that those two colors are matching, or at least you're seeing the same quality of color from looking at it on an internet page and actually viewing it within Resolve?
Yes, that would be by going through a color page, in this case here, and put them into a gallery. And then, for example, here, and you can compare them side to side. In this case, I have my selected still image like this. Don't worry about this because I have my color management turned on. And then after this, I can send this into my reference monitor by bypassing my OS. So by doing so, I can monitor the exact color in the truly color accurate, how do you call it, environment, so to say, right? And this type of setup that I'm showing you here, it's really nice when you are starting to, if you want to edit your timeline, because you can always see the output in full screen. But if you don't like that, and if you want to exploit further the two-screen, double-screen setup, you can turn off the video clean feed, and under the same menu or in the same tab, you can turn on dual screen. So if you're in edit page, you'll see that your main viewer will be on the first monitor, and in the second monitor you'll see your media, and you'll see your index page, and then you'll see your effects. So this is another nice way of working whenever you want to like separate those two and have a more how do you call it, bigger real estate in your editing timeline. What even nice in that is that if you go to the same menu, dual screen, and you select full screen timeline, you move the viewer into the second monitor. Meanwhile, you will be able to like work in the full screen timeline on your first monitor. Just imagine if you have like a lot of stacks of layers of clips, and I think this is like a very nice setup when you start to have like start to accumulate a lot of things in your timeline. Right, so let me set it back. And also, last but not least, oh, by the way, there's a nice, how do you call it, shortcut here. You can expand this panel, for example, there, and then you can stack a lot of like different panels that is available inside Resolve. So what I want to show you is that sometimes whenever you are using some like effects plugin, like my favorite effects plugin here, let me search for Misfire from Red Giant. You can really see that this effect has a lot of functions or a lot of sliders. And if I open the inspector and go to effect, it may seem that, okay, that there are only like 2 sliders. But once you open this drop down, it seems like it's endless. You start to see like a lot of controls. There's a really nice shortcut in Resolve that is Shift and F. Come on, Shift F. Hold on. Okay, why it's not moving? Why it's not changing view? Okay. Shit. Uh-oh. Seems like it's not working. Boo. That's
What are you trying to do?
Having a full page viewer.
Of just the pages and go into full screen like application?
Yeah. Here. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be available in edit page as well, right? So for example, if you have a lot of like effects that if you have an effects with a lot of sliders, you can do this. That is by pressing Shift F, and by doing so, you can change, you can monitor your output while changing the setting of your effects. Right.
Can we take a quick step back, just to because I had to hop off because my computer just was having a technical issue here. I wasn't seeing anything. Could you go showcase, I guess, under the workspace or the view to show the primary and dual? Can you talk through this real quick?
Yeah, dual screen. I think I already talked about that.
Okay.
If you like how do you call it? Having it on, it means like it will split your UI into like 2 different monitors. So if you do that, you'll have your monitors, your viewers, like the first how do you call it, the viewers, editing viewers, in the first monitors, and then you have your timeline right below that, and in the second viewer you will have the metadata, the inspector, and then also the
how about if you hit the P key?
And then when I hit the P key, you'll get a full screen on the first on the viewer. So, but
on the
if
primary
I am
monitor.
on the primary. So if I am sending the viewer into the, oh, hang on, let me share both monitors. Yeah, something like that. So if I'm changing, if I'm having the dual screen on with full screen timeline, and here if I'm selecting P, so my secondary secondary monitor will display a full viewer, but I can still monitor like the complete timeline in my first video, first
Or
monitor.
you could switch that around too if you want.
Yeah, exactly. And that
So
is
go to
by using
workspace.
the primary display, and I can change it either in using the second monitor or the first monitor.
And did you already showcase the video clean feed if you have studio version?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I think we're at the tail end of this.
I
We should
think
probably
we
leave
are
some room for
almost hitting
Q&A.
1 hour mark. Is there any question that we can squeeze in? Oh, by the way, I forgot to show this because previously Simon has a questions of like how to send the pure signal out to your reference monitor, right? So for example, here, if I want to monitor my pure signal on my PD32 2020U, I can use tools. I can use like these boxes that available in Blackmagic that you can buy from Blackmagic. So if you're on Windows, I would suggest you to get into like Decklink card, which you can insert on your PC, and it will send out RGB, pure RGB signal into your monitor. And that model would be like if you're working mainly for SDR or standard dynamic range project, you can use the Decklink mini monitor. Meanwhile, if you're on Mac, you can get something like Ultra Studio. And this is like the big versions. You can still get like the Ultra Studio 3G. It's a small box that you can get also in Blackmagic as
I
well.
feel like you can, not to derail what you're saying, I feel like you can also get this for the PC as well. Some
Yeah,
PCs
PC.
have the Thunderbolt cards.
Yes. If you have like the Asus Thunderbolt card, PCIe card, you can also do
Or if
that.
you have, I think the HP workstations have them. Some of the Dell
Yeah,
workstations have them because
yeah,
initially the Thunderbolt was Intel and Apple together.
yeah. But
Initially,
if you have HDMI with SDI, you can use the Decklink Mini Monitor 4K. And how do you call it? With that, you need to open your PC and insert the card, and that's it. With the external boxes, it's pretty much plug and play. Right.
Hey, Max, we had a
hand it back
question
to
for you.
Ali. There it is.
So Max, here's a question from Esteban, and maybe all of you guys can chime in too. But what are your reasons to use Windows versus Mac? Personal or professional preferences?
I use both. I use both literally, but I like using Windows because of the how do you call it, the
Customization.
exactly, the customizations. Look at that, it's the tongue twister. It's the customizations of it, side of it, so I can change it to whatever specs I want, so to say.
I'll answer that too. I
Yeah.
use the Mac
Go on.
because the aesthetic, and I feel like well, there's many reasons why, but if you walk into an agency, if you go to a producer's office, majority of these people are going to have a Mac, and you show up with an old crusty PC, and you might not get that job. So that's another shallow reason why I use a Mac. But personally, I just like the aesthetic.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to make my money back on the job, so I'll spend the money on the aesthetic as well as the experience of the OS. That's my take on it. Simon.
There's a number of reasons I've seen people use for it, and one is portability, but the other is the customizability as well. If you're doing, let's say, a lot of 3D work, we see many studios use Windows to do the heavy lifting because, as Max said, you can put in a card, you could swap out a more powerful card because a lot of stuff is processed on the GPU, and that can be a bottleneck. But having said that, if you've got an ecosystem where you've got, say, an iPhone, an iPad, and you've got the same Apple ID, and then that's going to make it easier to copy and paste stuff between those devices and your Mac, then that's another reason to go that way. And you could do a similar thing with Android as well. And I've seen design studios split down the middle, where half of them are using PC and half of them are using Mac, and they're still working on the same projects on the same network, and they can switch between each other. So it's another it depends question. I think it's a largely personal preference, but then it depends on what you are actually needing to output.
Yeah.
Having said that, I was, by the way, I'm sorry to cut into that. I also use both. And I've also got a similar model to Max. I've got a PD3220, and it's got a KVM system on it, so you can plug in different PC and you can control it with the same keyboard and mouse. So I can jump in between both, and it depends on which particular project I'm working on. So you don't have to then have two separate systems side by side. You can link them all through the same monitor.
And one other thing, right? Just in case you're like rendering, exporting, and you're just waiting on your video to finish, you can also just hook up your Nintendo Switch, and you can hook it up to a little dock, and then hit the device manager here, little hockey puck that comes with your BenQ, and you can switch sources, and now you can be waiting for that, and you can actually even split the screen if you want, and kind of see when things are exporting. So just a fun little feature.
That would be another series, Tony. Waiting like a pro.
Yes, waiting like a pro, exporting like a pro.
Exactly.
So,
what do you say to the producer when they come in? They watch you playing your Switch. Say, no, I'm rendering.
They don't. I'm a ninja. You'll never see me playing.
Or in the colorist term, Simon, since you're also a colorist, we're resetting our eyes.
There you go. There you go. Well, you're going to need to desaturate your screen, because I think all those video games are pretty harsh on the eyes.
Yeah.
But
and
yeah.
A few more questions on color now that you mention it. Sure. Here's one from earlier in the webinar. We didn't get a chance to get to it, but yes. They asked, when you use a color palette like from Instagram, do you have to consider copyright at all?
No, color, like if you're sampling the idea of a color, it's not really a copyrighted color. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Simon. Like a color, nobody really owns a color. I mean, you could talk to Crayola, you know, the crayon people, but nobody really owns a color. If you're like sampling these, that's why Adobe made this possible. That's why there's like 4 websites, maybe even more, that allow you to do that. If there was copyright issues, those websites would not be around. That's my take on it.
Yeah, if you're sampling a particular pixel value, then you're taking the pixel value from that image. You're not replicating that image and then taking advantage of the creative choices because it's a single color. But having said that, you are taking advantage of the fact that they mixed several different colors in that particular swatch. But we've been doing that for many, many centuries anyway. Mm-hmm. So that the quick answer to your question is that you're not taking somebody else's IP if you're sampling an individual color.
And then Daniela asked, what's the FX's name? She had missed it.
FX?
Yeah, I think there was an FX tool or program you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Okay. The effects that I mentioned earlier, it's a collection of it's a misfire. It was a collection of it's a plugin from the collections of plugins in Red Giant suite called Universe. So if you go to maxon.net and you go to products, you'll see Universe, and Universe is it's a massive library of plugins that you can use to spice up your edits. And the effects that you're seeing at the moment in your screen, it's the color palette. It's native to Resolve. So anytime you have like a still images, bring them into Resolve, drop in the color palette, and you know you have your inspirations right there. And a side note for this is that if you are not copying, if you are doing it just from one image or
Inspiration.
exactly, if you're doing it based on one particular film, that would be a plagiarism, right? But if you're doing it from a lot of movie, that's research.
Yep, that's why we have so many sequels in the world right now.
Exactly.
Spin-offs. So sampling and inspiration, totally normal. Those websites would never exist if that was an issue.
Yeah.
Hey, Max, one more on color. Dieter asked, for color correcting, would the photo view series, or I guess this may be a BenQ question, I might chime in as well. Would the photo view series be the way to go, or would the PD series be sufficient? What's the difference? So Dieter, to answer your question, the photo view series is another name for the PD series. The PD is the prefix for the model number. So that would be one way to go. And then another option would be the SW series, or the photo view or photography series, which would be the monitors that get up to a 99% Adobe RGB, and they can be hardware calibrated with a color emitter. And then Max, go ahead, chime in. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ali. And anytime you want like a color accuracy, SW series is the one that I really recommend you, because if it's get into 99% of Adobe RGB, I'm sure it is 100% in sRGB. And if it's 100% in sRGB and Rec 709 is exactly the same color space. So that's your way to go. Right.
Okay, and Daniela requested that we share the link, please, for the Red Giant plugins. I can send it to her.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about those in the coming
exactly
series.
We're actually going to talk a lot about those, Daniela, in the next coming episode. But
actually,
if you go to Maxon,
yeah, there you go. You got it. I was gonna say you're on it.
If you go to maxon.net and then you go to products and universe, you see like there are 5 categories of those effects. So for example, if you go to effects and fuel, and as you hover over one of these tiles, you see like what each single effects is actually doing. And this effects is really nice. All these collections, it's like easy to use. You just simply drag and drop it and you can see the result right away. And it comes with a lot of presets as well.
Thanks, Max. And Simon, I sent you a question from Paris. It's a little more involved. Do you want to take a stab at it?
Oh, I missed that question. Hang on, let me scroll back up. Was this in the chat to me in the side panel?
No. It's going to be in the Q&A, but I can read it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you make different output files for different mediums, i.e. widescreen websites versus Instagram square screen, or do you allow websites to auto crop some of the photo or video that you post?
That's you absolutely want to make different output files, because then you have more control over the cropping. I mean, you could, to some extent, allow, if you didn't have time, you could put one and then let them do their thing. But what we've seen in terms of it's not just my experience, what many facilities and broadcasters do, they have departments and people who do the various versionings, they call it. So if you've got 1x1 or 9x16 deliverables, that's it. And that's what you'll get on a job. That's the first thing Tony will ask on a job. So what are the deliverables? And it may be that you've got somebody in shot that actually isn't in the direct center. So if you were auto cropping, they might crop out half of the talent. And so in that case, then you would do a follow or an auto crop, a manual crop, and then you would do that in post-production and output it. And then in terms of color, then you want to have different aesthetics on different devices and also different text size, because the subtitles on something that you're going to look on your phone are going to be very different than subtitles you're going to look on your screen. And so that's sort of a creative decision you have to make. And then some devices actually serve you up different types of image depending if they recognize what you're on. But the quick version is then allow, if you're quoting on a job like this, please allow time for spending another half a day at least for making those different versions. I guess you've been in the battle for this, Tony, many times on productions. What would you add to that?
I would say there's even like a group of people who create all these presets for all of these things. So if you're using Adobe specifically, if you're using Resolve specifically, or even Final Cut 10, like they ship with their own Facebook, Instagram exports. Some of these things are actually, some of them you still have to go and tweak and tailor a little bit more, depending on what your output is and if you're scaling things down or just cropping. So there are people that's their whole job, like a post-production engineer or somebody like that who maps out the workflow and what the deliverables are. And, you know, if you're freelancing, if you're doing the full turnkey, you know, that's more billable hours for you. So make sure that you pay attention to, you know, like Simon said, put that in your timetable and make sure that's billable hours, because you can easily just lose out on time and billable hours by just assuming that that using Premiere's template for it is going to fix it. Sometimes you have to actually go in and dial in exactly what the size is, frame size, and frame rate and everything, and make sure that the color profile is good so it doesn't mash down all that beautiful work that you did with color.
Absolutely. And as Paris says in that question, with the final line, does the client have a willingness to pay for the extra time to create these different versions? Then if they haven't thought about it, then it's likely that it might be a surprise for them. So it's definitely worth bringing up. As is the concept of what happens when you want to make changes. I know you didn't ask this, but the classic thing is the number of times you would change something and the amount of time that you've allowed in there for the project, not just in terms of money, but in terms of the delivery time. So if you do need to apply an extra day or however long it is to make those different versions and then change them again, that's something to talk about up front.
I would honestly just factor it in and you know, go for it. I honestly have no problem just factoring that in ahead of time. And then if they really want to trim and cut corners, maybe that's not a gig for you. That's my opinion, though. Like, I'm not gonna, I don't want to contaminate that, but for me personally, like if there's cutting corners on tech or cutting corners on delivery, that's, you know, that's kind of like trimming your wings a little too short. So I don't hesitate to pad in that time and say this is necessary. Otherwise, you know, it's just less of a headache for you to deal with.
Guys, and one last question. Esteban was asking, where can he see more of your work, more of your portfolio, on what social platforms, and where can we find you?
Maxon.net. I think
yeah, that's
Simon, you could touch on that.
That's a good one. We have a lot of training content on Cineversity as well, and then also, as Max probably will bring up, we do a lot of these sessions on YouTube on the Maxon training team, and you will find a lot of Max. Yes, that's where Max shares a lot of his techniques and the things that he's been working on, and also project files and presets as well. So that will be a good place to start. That's an excellent question, Esteban.
Yeah. Also, the other stuff has an NDA, so anything I publicly share, there's a good chance that it's on the Maxon training team YouTube, and there's a link on there for a Dropbox that even has camera original files that I have. There's a few that Max and I have shot together.
Yes, and I think Tony did a lot of training with Maxons as well, and in some of webinars you can even access those footage and timeline as well, right, Tony?
We love keeping it interactive.
Yeah, project files, as we said.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, can I get the last question?
Yes.
I'm excited for episode 2. When can we expect it?
Well, let's just say soon for now. But yeah, I would say in the next. This is the end of March, and then we have NAB. I would probably say after NAB to be safe.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be looking forward to it. I really want to thank the 3 of you for taking the time to be a part of this webinar and put on this 3-part series for us, especially Max. I know it's after midnight for you, super late in your local time zone, but
Thank you so
big
much.
thanks from all of BenQ, and
No problem.
thank you to the 3 of you gentlemen.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to see you all in the next episode.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'll
Thanks.
second that. Thank you for the opportunity, BenQ. Thank you,
Thank you
Maxon.
so much,
And
BenQ.
thank you, everybody watching us in the afternoon or early evening, wherever you are.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. Really
Max,
appreciate
and Tony. Or sorry, go ahead, Simon.
No, just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.